says, are we volunteering our doom by signing up for Ancestral and Me? I think that's Ancestry and Me. And other Ancestry DNA companies. This came with 2 links. So the first one, I appreciate everyone who posts topics. And if you guys want to see a topic discussed, dissected up here, you guys can join the Discord. The link is in the description. Join the Discord, and you could navigate your way to Shoot the Breeze channel, and you could post up your prompt as well as an attachment or 2 that supports the prompt. But what I do ask, and I've been asked, is that please don't try not to post long articles that I got to sit here on a Saturday night when I'm trying to be kind of having a relaxed conversation, and I got to read these long articles. But it's been a while since I've had to do it, so I'll just do it tonight. So this first article says, Race Science Group say they access sensitive UK health data. Exclusive. Fringe network recorded boasting of securing data from UK biobank trove donated by 500,000 volunteers. Fringe researchers advocating nefarious theories that intelligence is based on race have obtained data from a trove of sensitive health information donated by 500,000 British volunteers, according to undercover footage. Recordings made by the anti-racism campaign group Hope Not Hate show members of a quote-unquote race science network discussing UK biobank data that they claim to have accessed. Some of the group have been blacklisted by the facility on the grounds they are quote-unquote not bona fide academics, but the footage suggests they may have circumvented its controls. It shows them saying they obtained a large haul of data. One of their associates acknowledges they are not meant to have that. Founded in 2003 by the Department of Health and Medical Research Charities, UK Biobank holds the genetic information, survey responses, blood samples, and medical records of 500,000 volunteers. The information it holds has been used to shed new light on diabetes, Parkinson's disease, and other illnesses. UK Biobank says projects using its data must be in the quote-unquote public interest. Participants gave consent for their information to be used, with identifying details removed for health-related research purposes. So there's a video here, it's a minute long. I'll play it, and then I'll continue to read.
In terms of the genomics, there's the UK Biobank polygenics course and phenotype means. I believe someone down in the UK Biobank, who was that, Simon?
Yeah, I've got the UK
Biobank. I'm sorry, go ahead, whoever's talking.
So yes, it's me who's got the UK Biobank downloaded.
Okay, so you have downloaded the data, so you could just score it, or?
Yeah, I should be. I was looking at that. I was thinking I can probably do that quite quickly. Because yeah, I've already got the data downloaded. I'm already working with the IQ stuff, so it should be quite easy to do it. Just scoring the phenotypes.
Okay, because the thing about the UK Biobank files is that they're so fucking large that you don't want to have to make a temporary copy of one that has better IDs.
Right. So until recently, rather than having to use UK Biobank's own platform, approved researchers were free to download data sets on their own systems. Researchers sign a contract undertaking not to share data without authorization. The footage raises questions about whether the controls have been sufficient. This shocking news suggests an appalling failure of governance at multiple levels. The British Medical Association Doctors Union wants tighter controls on health data. Questions now need to be answered by UK Biobank and NHS England around how, when, where, why, with whom, and for what purpose the confidential data was shared. The undercover footage has been examined by The Guardian, which conducted further research alongside Hope Not Hate. The group of race science researchers, which claims to have obtained UK Biobank data, is led by Emil Kierkegaard, a Danish blogger and publisher. He runs the research arm of a secretive network called the Human Diversity Foundation. So I'm going to skip down. This is the guy here, Emil Kierkegaard, Dutch guy. So I'm going to jump a little bit because, again, it's just too much. You're not meant to have that. It was over smoked salmon and venison at a chic Notting Hill restaurant that the head of the Human Diversity Foundation's media arm revealed the group had obtained UK Biobank data. Matthew Frost, a former religious studies teacher at a London private school, has told The Guardian he is no longer affiliated with the network. But at the October 2023 dinner, he spoke of his ambitions for the organization. Unaware of the camera hidden in the shirt button of the man sitting opposite, he said the team of researchers he was helping to raise money for had big ticket items planned. They've managed to get access to the UK Biobank, Frost said. You're not meant to have that. To know more, Frost said, talk to Emil. Okay. This is let me skip again. So at the end here it says genetic data sets that you need for testing things with, say, genetic differences in IQ or anything in that direction are all behind bars, Kierkegaard said. He went on, the only way we get these data sets is when some academic gets them and gives them to us under the table. He added, not necessarily academic, sometimes private sector, taking a big risk for themselves. So I guess we can get kind of the idea of what this is about. The second article says, revealed International Race Science Network secretly funded by U.S. tech boss. So I'm not going to read too much of this. But basically, I guess the idea here is we have race science folks who now have access to your DNA, and they're being passed along under the table, as the previous article would have mentioned. And now we have a connection where a U.S. tech boss is secretly funding this agenda. So what can these people potentially do with your DNA, right? That's pretty much, I think, the gist of it. It's just way too much of an article to be sitting here on a Saturday night reading. So forgive me for that. To the person who posted it, next time post a couple of video clips if you don't mind. So should be sub number 2 says, are we volunteering our doom by signing up for Ancestry and Me and other ancestry DNA companies? Before I throw it to the panel, let me just address this right here. So Jagan, I guess he's gone. That's fine. He says, before I go, you'll never catch me calling myself an FBA, a Ghanaian, a Nigerian, or a Jamaican. I'm Black or African, and that's fine. But one of the things that I noticed in my time doing Shoot the Breeze, and it's pretty weak and pathetic, is when a discussion doesn't go someone's way in the chat, and all of a sudden, and in particular, this FBA ADOS discussion too, by the way, in particular, this discussion, when it doesn't go someone's way in the chat, they up and they go. And I find that to be weak, because we don't just talk about FBA and ADOS. In fact, the truth be told, I try to cut down on that, on those topics myself. But if you're gone, that's fine. Take care and stay Black. Jose, to get back to Shoot Resource number 2, Jose says, if you've been to a hospital.
Hold on, Coco.
Yes, sir.
Coco, remember when we used to play basketball, right? On the basketball court. And the person who was getting beat up on the basketball court get mad and he take his basketball and leave.
Yeah, he takes the ball and go home. Yeah. It's that kind of vibes. Jose in the chat said, if you've been to a hospital past 20 plus years, they have your info, especially these privatized. They sell your everything. Marcus Garvey is out there in the chat saying good night. Haven't seen you in a while, sis. Thanks for coming through. Good to know that you're still out there. With that said, I guess let me start with Black Steel on this one. Black Steel Are we volunteering our doom by signing up for Ancestry and Me?
I wouldn't trust those companies with my DNA personally, right? But Jose said, they got our stuff already, right? And I think what they're doing, because they're trying to push this racist idea of race and IQ being linked to one another. That's not happening. They like to push that idea, but I think they're taking the data. But again, they already got our stuff. I mean, what do they want to do? Are they cloning? Are they looking for diseases? Are they looking for compatible transplants for wealthy people? It's a number of reasons why. But I think that they've already got what they need from. I would never volunteer. I know where I'm from. I can look in the mirror and see where I'm from. I got too many people coming up to me asking me if I'm Jamaican, if I'm Nigerian my whole life. So I don't need any type of DNA test. But I do think that these race scientists who would really want to link race and intelligence, they want to try to show that Black people are genetically inferior in some way, and just to prove their point. And this is something that they've always tried to justify their atrocities. As a result, we're smarter than them, we're better than them. This is something that I often see these crackers doing. But really, like, the question is why y'all so lax on y'all security? People giving you their DNA, why are you so lax on security? But overall, I don't think it's what we think it is. I don't know if it's something they're plotting against us, if they have a long-term plan or a goal. But I do think, again, they mentioned race scientists, right? The very idea of what race is a social is not a biological thing. Race is definitely a social construct. We often talk about, mixed race people. Are they Black? Are they mixed race? It depends on where you're at. In America, most mixed race people are considered Black. Some countries, like in Latin America, they got their own category. The only thing that's different is that what society you live in. So race itself is an oxymoron because there's no biological source for race. That's something that every scientist agrees on. But I think they're really just looking to justify or come up with some way to link intelligence. Like, they always talk about Black people have a low IQ, and instead of blaming it on the social factors and the racism in the education system, they're going to say, well, these Black people are just naturally stupid, right? That's why we enslave them. And that's kind of what the idea they're pushing. And I think that's what the data is for. So I'll go ahead and I'll leave it there. Thank you, company.
Appreciate it, Black Steel. Let me welcome in Ditso this week. Ditso, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much. Thank you for having me again. Very interesting subject. I was aware of this Emil Kierkegaard, whatever his name is, last name. He's just another pseudo anti-intellectualism type of individual who promotes racism, who promotes hate.
Oh, okay. I thought this was going to add some more to that.
Okay, no, I wanted to keep it short, but yeah, based on what the prior person said, we agree. The idea of race is obsolete. When we talk about groups of individuals, we're talking about ethnical, geographical denominators that enables us to understand that people that are born on a specific area are closer to certain ethnical and cultural practices that are as diverse as there are humans right now. So this whole thing about categorization of groups of people, it's extremely set on prejudice. In what way? For example, if we look at how the United States categorizes groups of individuals, we see that systematically confuses ethnical and geographical denominators with racial obsolete ideas. One of the best examples is to call all Latin Americans under the term of Hispanic, which is an absurdity. It's unreal. Um, or to confuse the identity or what is the Asian with just one or two nations of Asia, and that's it. So we see those categorizations being set forward not because of a scientific or a objective way of categorizing groups and identifying them, but because of imperialistic uh, intentions. I don't know if that makes a little
Yeah,
bit more in depth of what we're referring to.
yeah. No, I appreciate that. That's a good response there. Black Steel had to go, so we'll see him next week. So it's just me, Buana, and Ditsa right now. But if any of you in the chat want to join the panel, help the conversation move along even better, just click the link pinned at the top of the chat. With that said, Buana, what say you? Are we volunteering our doom by signing up for ancestry.com?
Yeah, I think that there is a little bit of truth to that statement. I am very nervous when, well, black people have a history that has been a lot of it has been fundamentally lost to history. So there is a curiosity there in trying to discover our history, our lineage, the past, what happened before we actually came to this part of the world. So, you know, you have these DNA companies that take our ancestry and do different kinds of testing, but they don't return our DNAs back to us after they finish in its usage in trying to discover our past. So as we know, corporations buy and sell different kinds of things. Our DNA is our precious commodity. It's a precious commodity. It's a bit of ourselves or a piece of our human information that we trustingly send to these corporations. And how could a man trust a corporation? That's very dangerous because a corporation has monetary interests. So if another corporation was to offer these DNA companies $1 billion to be able to have access to our private DNA or our private DNA information, that's possible. I do trust African ancestry is really one of the few businesses that I wouldn't say that I trust wholeheartedly, but I give credence to, just because I've listened to Rick Kittle speak, and I'm listening to Gina Page speak. So I have a degree of trustworthiness for them, and their company. But I think that, like I say, they are also a corporation too, and they are human beings, and they are subject to human greed as well. And I don't know if they will fall to the pressure of, okay, let me sell you. I'm gonna give you $1 billion, but I need the access to your DNA information. This is a concern for me. So I think that it is a I don't know if it spells gloom and doom, but I think that it is of great concern. Also, federal and government departments, we know how corrupt they are. Some police officer, God forbid, take your DNA information and solve a case, solve a case that he was trying to solve. He has just dabbled some of your DNA on some bloodstained clothing, and all of a sudden, okay, it's that guy over there. We have proof. Here's his DNA here. So it is a dangerous kind of proposition. I would though. I kind of, when I hear Ditto speak sometimes, I would like to know the reality of what he is saying. He is saying pre-colonial. How will we how would the people themselves categorize themselves? Him being an indigenous person, and having black, also African ancestry, how would that categorization work without the whole colonial experience? Because we would probably categorize ourselves completely different than how the Europeans would. So I think that his argument is it's a very insightful one. I know it's kind of a little bit away from what we're discussing, but I'm curious about that kind of discussion as well. But I'll just leave it there for now.
Well, I don't know if
Yeah, go ahead, Ditso.
okay. Yeah, it's actually a very interesting point because look, and I'm gonna highly attach to this conversation. The matter of fact is that in the last 200 years, 248 years, there has been a continuous rush on trying here, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, to reset our identities after the process of independence when we defeated the Europeans and became independent nations.
Sorry, Ditso. Are you tapping on the mic or something? There's a
No,
rumble. There's a rumbling going on.
that's my ventilator. Is a bit hot, but I'll turn it off. Is that better?
Yes, much better. Go ahead.
Okay. So, understanding that and going back into that time frame, we see that, for example, the people of Tenochtitlan, which is currently modern day Mexico DF, they knew their identity as Mexica, and they understood that there were different groups of Mexica happening very close to each other. The Mayans, they did not call themselves Mayans; they called themselves Lamperas. Or, for example, the Chorotegas or the Nicoya Kingdom, more to the south, you'll see different terminologies being utilized in their respective languages. There were two particular languages that happened between Mexico, Central America, and South America that were the Nahuatl languages and the Chibcha languages. So obviously, you would have to go into each of those indigenous to see what record they left in regards of how they identify themselves. It's not an easy task, but at least we know those examples of the Aztecs, aka Aztecs, Mexica people, or the Lamperas, or the Biribiri, or etc. So that partial knowledge that we have then leads us to know that the people here were conscious that we existed, that they were in different stages of constructing civilizations, some equal to the civilizations of Egypt or any other of the Europeans. But then with colonialism, that knowledge has been pretty much eradicated to a degree that we only have bits, and we have to then part from those bits to fill in the gaps.
Appreciate that, dude. So let's welcome in our brother Jose this week. Jose, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. Yeah. Yes. Uh, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for
How's,
coming through.
how's the panel? How's the chat? Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
Jose. Good, man. I hope you're good.
Yes, me too. But excuse
Jose,
me.
are we volunteering our doom by signing up for Ancestry and me?
Yes, the subject. I just recently did it, like 2 or 3 months ago, and interesting results. Even there was one big spot from Colombia to the south of Chile, and I thought, yeah, well, it's true that Africans been there for a long time, especially my DNA. I mean, if fishermen get lost, they might end up in the north of South America or in the Mexican Gulf. But anyway, that's another subject. Yes, I believe it's dangerous. I live in the city of Rotterdam, and it was bombed by the Germans. And what they taught us in history lessons is that the county they left the county house and the postal office intact because of the registry, so they could find the Jews, right? But of course, that's their narrative. They make the Second World War about Jews, but there is a point. There is a point in it, right? So back then, everything was paperwork. So to figure out who is who, you it sounds logic to leave the county house and the postal office intact. And nowadays, nowadays there's this technology. Everybody is connected with each other. Here in the Netherlands, until quite recently, the healthcare was in the hands of the government, but quite recently they privatized everything, and these hospitals are acting like corporations. They're taking over each other, and they are expanding and branch. How do you call it? Branch. Branch diversity. They do other types of service. So hospitals are really acting like corporations, and that's really dangerous because I mean even Facebook is selling information about who and what we are, right? So that's it's a 1+1 is 2 for me, but as I said in the comments, it's yeah. What are you going to do to stop it, right? You go to a hospital. Um, in the past 20 years, I've been to the hospital like 2 or 3 times, and they have to check what blood type you have. When I was younger, I even they even rewarded me with some kind of bronze brush for for giving blood. I have blood type O minus, and everybody it's everybody can have that. So yeah, I was in my younger years I was the naive good guy, and yeah, they have my information like for like maybe 40 years. So yeah, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Nothing. It's and I think the danger is depends on who rules the world, and it's savage crooks rule the world. So of course our information is everywhere and in the hands of evil people. So yeah, what are we going to do? What is there to do against it?
Yeah, I think Jose, and thank you for that, Jose. I think Jose kind of hit on it right there. What are you going to do? The thing to do, then this is why you really have to be, as black folks, as African people, you got to be about power, man. These people have the power, right? You sign up for this stuff thinking, yeah, I want to trace my lineage, my heritage, etc. I want to find my family, right, so to speak. Because I know some people who've done it, and they get hits every other week about some cousin or something in Georgia or where, or, or what have you. And people are doing this thing just trying to learn about themselves, discover themselves more. But who's in power though? You see, the people in power, who's in control, can use this for all sorts of nefarious things. It's just like Google, for example. Like Google did a great job in the early 2000s when they came out with their free version of basically Microsoft Office and stuff like that. But there's a catch. They can use the things that you store. They can use those things to sell them, to do whatever with, and that's the problem. They have the power to. So this is a power issue ultimately, right? This is ultimately a power issue. With that said, let's welcome in our brother Kofi, the Black Critic. Kofi, how are you this week?
Hey, I'm doing good, doing good. Thank you. Thank you. What I have to say about the whole DNA thing, full transparency on my side. I did do ancestry, and when I did do it, I was a bit skeptical. I'm just speaking towards the scientific legitimacy if it works. I did it. And like you say, Coco is saying, oh, you have a cousin here. This is your first cousin, your second cousin, your third cousin. I didn't use my name, my real name. I used my government. You gave him, all I gave him was a sample of a swab of my cheek or some spit or whatever. And you put in a little small tube. And you have to do, you have to do a lot. So my results came back. I'm like, yeah, this thing probably doesn't, it would and would not work. And once you do that, it connects you with obviously other people who matches your DNA. It says this is your first cousin, second cousin, third cousin, and it puts you in a pool with these people. And there's like a little online chat thing going on. And I was talking to somebody, and we're just talking, we're trying to connect who's who. And we kept getting everything right. All of a sudden, he stopped talking to me, paid it no mind. My mother called me, and she says, "Hey, are you online or something like that, or talking to somebody right now?" I was like, "Not really. Probably like 20, 30 minutes ago." He's like, "Yeah, there's somebody saying that because I have a brother and say, hey, I think I'm talking to Travis." And I told my mother, I was like, "Wait, is this ancestry.com?" She's like, "Yes." And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Wait, who is that?" She said, "That is my mother's. That's my second cousin. That's my mother's aunt's son. So he's my second cousin." So the legitimacy of it working, it actually works. He is my actual second cousin. As far as them doing something nefarious with the DNA, from my understanding, I don't think they could share your DNA. I could be wrong, but to my understanding back then, terms and conditions do change. But to my understanding, they can't share your DNA. And let's say if they were to share the DNA, let's say they want to clone Kofi or whatever like that, the samples that I gave them is not enough to replicate, because there's only so much DNA you have within a particular sample. To my understanding of science, where you can actually have enough to replicate it, but yeah, I'm just speaking to legitimacy of it, and to as far as like, the whole could it be replicated and stuff like that. And yes, we do want to find out who we are. I mean, mine, it always updates. So the thing about the database is like it's not like your DNA is going to be absolutely unique in the scheme of DNA and RNA, how it reads. It already has a database, right? It already has a database. So when you send your sample in, it's matching what it has, that database, what it has, and based upon the region that you have. So the more people contribute to it, it just expands the database. It'll get different haplogroups, it'll get different so-called races and things of that nature. It also does on genetic diseases, what you're more prone to based upon your genetics, what disease you're more prone to. So it's not like it's not gonna have your DNA already. Our DNA is not that really specific or special where they don't have it. Like Joe say, hey, look, you go to the go to the hospital, they already take your blood. You go to the dentist, you know what I'm saying? If you have a tooth pull, they dispose it, they take your blood, they already have these things. Only way that I see how it would change, and I see it working in real life. Now, my mother was like, okay, my great grandmother was East Indian. She was half East Indian and half black. So through my whole life, I'm thinking she's half East Indian. When I got my results back, it said indigenous. So I told my mother, I said, no, I think she had to be indigenous, not East Indian. I was like, well, no, because my grandmother told me, I was like, this is what the DNA says. And all that it does is just update. First I was Chilean, and it went from Chilean to oh my gosh, I think to Cuban or something like that. All right. So it changes. So I just want to give you just a little insight to that, just so for those who don't know what my experience was. That's pretty much it.
I appreciate that. A couple of things though. You don't need a lot of DNA to replicate whatever. So they could use picograms of DNA. There's something called PCR, where they amplify or they make many copies of DNA so that just a little trace Like they could find a tiny drop of blood somewhere, and if it's still viable, they can map out the whole genome of that blood. The thing about this ancestry and me stuff, it initially came out of something that was supposed to be good. It came out of what was called personalized medicine, where they wanted to be able to map out the genome, right? That first started with the Human Genome Project, and then later they wanted to be able to map out individual genomes so that, like Kofi said, you can tell what type of diseases and stuff would come up in your lifetime or potentially come up in your lifetime, so that they could create therapies and stuff to preventative medicine. But then this ancestry thing came out of that. The problem is that if you remember some years ago, there was a case. Maybe it wasn't true, but from what I understand, it was true. There was a case where someone killed someone, and they had this DNA from the crime scene, but couldn't identify anybody. But it hit as a match on like ancestry.com or something like that, and they was able to find the person's brother, and that's how they was able to find the guy who killed the person. So it's a very tricky thing. Now, like Kofi said, terms and agreements do change, and these articles are talking about not even terms and agreements. These articles are talking about straight up theft, and like underneath dealings, like people are stealing stuff and carting it away and doing whatever with it. So that's really the issue in this prompt is you've submitted your DNA, well-meaningly, because you want to find out your history. And then these people who have the power to do so can steal this information and do all sorts of stuff with it that you're not even sure of what they'll do. So I think that's something just to clarify. Let me welcome back Buana. Buana, are we
Yo, Coco,
Yes, sir.
one quick question. Are they able to duplicate that with saliva? Because ancestors use saliva.
Yeah, so, well, what ancestry, if you say saliva, well, earlier you said you'd have to do a swab. So in your mouth, what happens is when you do a swab is you're sloughing off epithelial cells, right? Epithelial cells, and with that will be some blood cells. And so, yeah, they can actually take that. In fact, I do this every semester. They could take that and do a DNA extraction from it, then set it up for PCR, polymerase chain reaction, amplify it, then do a gel to make sure that the bands are lining up. In fact, that's how they know relatedness too. The more bands that line up on a gel electrophoresis. So yeah, they can do that from that tiny amount, of DNA. In fact, there was a movie one time where a white guy, he goes and he's complicit in a crime, and he doesn't have the stomach for it, so he vomits. They can go into that vomit because you vomited and it passed out of your stomach through the esophagus, sloughed off cells on its way up and out of the mouth. They can go back and do DNA analysis on that and figure out, who you are, so to speak, from that too. So yeah, it's that sophisticated. It doesn't take much.
I love when I hear Koku talking. Koku is a friggin' biologist. Yeah, and so when he goes his scientific rants, it's interesting just to listen to it. It's very interesting.
What's interesting in all this, in
But I
my
have a
case,
question on Goku. Go ahead,
Yeah,
go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
okay, what I was gonna say in regards to this, in my case, I did 3 ways. Yes, I utilized 23andMe. I did ancestry.com, but because the University of Costa Rica, the major state-owned university, has actually a department of biological, cellular and molecular biology department. I was also able to submit my DNA through there in a more protected fashion to have a DNA exam in that sense. So I had not. I did not only rely on those companies, but I relied in my internal science, biological, you know, uh, aspect. And what it actually was very interesting because both utilize the AIM, which is the ancestry informative marker, which is the technique that all of them are using to determine ancestry through the swab. And yeah, one swab of saliva is more than enough to do the exam. So what I did realize is that the private companies respond to Anglo American interest of categorization of people in such a way that they oversimplify the findings of those markers and create confusion. Whilst if we had more public access and more a less private controlled industry in that way, we could have a more exact ancestry towards people. Because at the end, the biggest problem that we've had, especially in the Western Hemisphere, is that due to colonialism, our identity has been warped into ideals that are not real. That's all I wanted to say.
All right. Thanks for that.
I just have one Coco. I just have one question. I hope that Ditso got what he needed to get out. One question for you, brother, as a biologist: should I have taken that freaking vaccine, bro? Should I have taken that?
That is a tough question to answer.
Okay.
From the standpoint of from this standpoint, it's a tough question to answer from this standpoint because the issue that I had with it, and I talked about it here before, is there wasn't as much research and development done on that as you would tend to have done. Now, there is human coronavirus that's been around from before, but this particular coronavirus was different allegedly. And so I don't know if it was a good thing to do or not. I'll be honest with you, I'm very skeptical. And I know that Kofi is a pharmaceutical guy, but I'm skeptical when they remove any liabilities, like any liabilities for anything that
Me
might
too.
happen.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. So that's that I would have to go through the science of it to see if it makes sense, but that is the aspects that stood out to me that I didn't like about it.
Well, it made sense
Fair
to
enough.
me.
Fair enough.
It made sense to me because I understand what you just saying, Coco. There wasn't enough trials was as long as it was supposed to be. But when I ask people, it's a flu virus. It's a flu virus. People make believe if they get it, their arm gonna fall off, their dick gonna fall off, and shit like that. The reason for it, and that's what I'm thinking. People thinking worst case scenario. You know, it's a flu, and the reason why they were trying to implement it, right? So the amount of people that was dying in comparison, I mean, all life is precious, but the amount of people that was dying in comparison to, let's say, United States was a couple 100,000, may not seem a lot to the majority. But we're talking about people that are old. We're talking about people that have immune deficiencies. We're talking about people who are sick, because of those immune deficiencies, right? These are the reason for the vaccine. It works to protect those people. It wasn't to protect people who are healthy. Saying people who may have, again, people who have complications with their breathing, like emphysema and things like that. It was to protect those people. And this is an infectious disease. It's not sickle cell anemia or anything like that. It's something that you could carry. So it is a risk to the community, to society. That's why being vaccinated was fine. Same thing as someone who has chemo, right? Even before COVID-19 came out, if someone has chemo, have immune deficiency issues, they would wear a mask. They would stay away from people just not to get infected. So worst case scenario to me, we're talking about the flu virus, and I have two people in my family that are doctors, and I had the same concerns. They was like, yeah, it hasn't been tested that long, but do you want to really take a chance? What's the worst going to happen? The side effects isn't as horrible as people is making out to be, and we have to use history at the same time. So when the influenza outbreak, polio, all these things happen, people had the same concerns. All these infectious diseases in the United States, people had the same concerns, and they were also told to mask up. This is like in the early 1920s. People are also masking up. Anything new that's in society that changes the norm of society, you know, mankind, it's just human nature to be on some like, well, I don't know about that, and just be a little bit conspiratorial about it. But I took the vaccine once. I didn't take a booster. I didn't take a second shot. I didn't take a booster, and I'm fine. And I always tell people, if it's so bad and it's so horrible, and everything you think was going to happen, we're talking about 2 years ago, right? The death toll for COVID-19 or just this mysterious death, everybody is fine. I'm fine. You're fine. People that you know that took it, they're fine, right? So to still say, well, I don't know, stuff like that, to me, the proof is in the pudding from us. And this is another thing that made me want to do it. When
It,
people were getting in line to do it, I'm about to wrap it up right here. When people were getting in line to do it, and people were saying it was fucking cell phone towers, and then they moved it to other bullshit and stuff like that. When you had rich people trying to pay the government to go get it, like I think it was Megan McCain and a couple other rich people that were trying to pay because it was only elderly people getting it first. They had rich people saying, no, I'll pay for it. That's how you know this shit is legit. Because that shit was suspect. No one would be, rich people would be trying to pay for it. But I'll just leave it right there.
if uh, if I may just contribute on this real quickly. One matter of fact, and this is based on a Lancelet study. Between 74 and this year 24, 154 million lives have been saved because of different vaccinations. That is not only the influenza, but we're talking about smallpox, we're talking about polio, and so on. The study tells us, and I'll put the link on the private chat so anybody can read it. The benefit of those lives saved goes up 52% in Africa. Improvements in water, sanitation, hygiene, better nutrition, and other factors have also improved. All this has contributed to the higher life expectancy in humanity in general. One thing I do want to mention is that there is a difference between the SARS-CoV coronavirus, and the influenza virus. They're two different viruses. Both of them are respiratory. They affect directly the respiratory, but they're two completely different viruses. So we got to be careful on saying on not saying that COVID is just influenza. No, it isn't. It's a complete different beast. The complete different virus in that sense. So with this, and going back to the point of DNA, there's no doubt that mapping the DNA has given us a step forward of understanding diseases and of understanding the human condition as it pertains to where we are at in all our own individual geographical locations. So, fine. Modern medicine, alongside some traditional forms of medicine, have proven to extend our life, to avoid us or minimize the impacts of something that people don't talk that much about. Nature is an effective killer. Nature is one of the most effective killers out there. And it does so without discrimination, without consideration of gender, race, ideology, or anything. Nature is nature, and it's there, ready. In any moment, it can develop anything that can just wipe us out. That's a matter of fact. So understanding those concepts and the necessary um, tools that DNA can provide us to understand and minimize those risks, as well as to provide us better knowledge of where we are at in our identity. I think that leaving it only in the hands of private corporations is also a crime. It's something that should not only be in the hands of private companies. That should be ready and accessible for people who want to know, but that information has to be extremely protected, because the misuse of that, I can't even imagine the misuse of DNA information. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Ditso, for bringing that back.
I
Jose, one second. Jose,
yes.
1 second. 1 second. Thanks for
Sorry.
bringing that back. Back to the topic here. Real quick in the chat, Provide Triggers for Evolution says, I have done 23andMe about 5 years ago. Marcus McGee, shout out to Marcus McGee, he's out there. He said, I did African ancestry, and it said I was from Guinea-Bissau, Fulani. That's interesting. That's good stuff. Jose, what you want to add here?
Yeah. The yeah, I just wanna throw up one term regarding the vaccines, and that's excess deaths, right? Excess deaths. So there is something going on with this COVID vaccine. But I don't wanna. That's not the subject. I want to go back to the subject and the example that I gave. So the nefarious, the dangerous thing to me is not that they will uh, um, clone people or whatever. The danger to me is the example that I gave. So everybody was registered, right, for other purposes, for post that letters arriving at the right person, right? But then another power came, another ideology came to power, and that was the Nazi and their superhuman dream, right? So this new power used the registry to find certain people, right? So imagine this same ideology comes to power, but now they have DNA. So they will not be hunting fake Jews. Back then it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear if you really were a Jew or not, right? If you converted, you were a Jew, right? But right now they can find the actual quote unquote Jews to exterminate them. So that's the danger that I see. So imagine this whole biblical Abrahamic thing is a real thing, right? And they again, right, the next Nazi ideology that takes power over the world again goes hunting for Jews. And it turns out that black people, you know, these Hebrew Israelites are right, and they will be hunting for them, and they will be able to distinguish, to actually find them, So that's the nefarious part that I see. I just wanted to emphasize that again. I just wanted to repeat that again. It's way simpler than oh, they are able to fuck with my DNA. No, they are able to find you. They are able to identify your actual group or creed or race that you belong to and wipe you out. That's I'm sorry, I forgot your name. But yeah, you have a point. Nature kills, right? But it's also along DNA. If you are resistant to a certain kind of disease, and that's the positive thing about diversity. We need every race, every race needs to preserve itself just in case there is a disease that wipes everybody out except your race or your creed or your DNA string. So nature kills, but humans with their ideologies kill also. And now humans with their ideologies can kill very specific groups. Remember the labs, the bio labs that the United States had in Ukraine. They were looking for a bio weapon that specifically kills Russians and Russians and Jews or whatever, but they were looking for a weapon to kill a specific group along DNA. So I just wanted to emphasize what the real danger is. That's all. Thanks.
Good stuff. Good stuff there, Jose. Juana, did you give your thoughts on this? Because you asked me about COVID, but did you speak to this prompt?
No, I did speak to it, but very briefly, I think it's funny because Koku is a scientist in his field. Kofi is a scientist in his field. I asked them a straight question. The scientific community, I say, is COVID good or bad for you? They say, well, maybe, I find the lawyer that did so as a lawyer. Did so give me a more affirmative answer. But maybe that's the profession. You can't answer with specificity. But why am I getting did so who's the lawyer say, well, you shouldn't do it because this. The scientific community say, well, maybe, maybe that's a professional thing that you all get, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm drinking Koku. I'll just leave it. I'll leave it Koku. I'll leave it.
All right. Yeah, but good points there from Ditso and from Jose. By the way, Jose, that's Ditso who's on the panel with us. So just so you know, but yeah, good stuff. I really do appreciate the surveillance aspect of it that Jose would have brought up. That they can track you and your whole people group with you too. They can take you out if they want to and take out your relatives. That's an interesting thing. Thanks for that. Let's go to Shooter Breeze topic number 3 though, for time's sake. We're gonna end at 11. So we just have about an hour left.